Homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen. I just got back from a vacation that my husband and I took for my birthday, and we were over on the west coast of Oregon doing some camping. And I love to camp and cook while I camp. And so I had a whole bunch of food that I brought with me, a lot of which was canned homestead products that I had made over the last year. And I don't really do a lot of meal planning. I just kind of throw a bunch of stuff in a box and see what I'm in the mood for and how it goes. And inevitably, I always bring way more than I actually need, which I did in this case as well. And what I end up doing is I have 2 or 3 meals that I didn't make when I get home. And so we end up having those for dinner the next couple of nights after we've returned from a camping trip, because I've kind of got them on my mind. And so one of these is tacos with chorizo and potatoes. And so that's what I'm making for dinner tonight. And I thought I'd bring you along. If you have been following along, you know that I have a chorizo recipe and video up. I'll put a link to it above and in the description. And that's become a fairly popular recipe, which is really gratifying to see. I love chorizo and it's easy to make. So we're gonna make some chorizo tacos tonight. I'm just using up one of my garden onions. I had a lot more red onions than I had yellow onions last year for whatever reason. And so it's been a bit of a challenge to get all of them used up before they start to sprout. Red onions always seem to sprout faster than yellow onions do. And unusually, I'm using my nonstick pan tonight. I almost always cook in my cast iron, but today I just finished doing all the laundry and cleaning all of the dishes from the camping trip, and I just can't bring myself to wash another cast iron skillet because I did a lot of that over the last week. So I'm gonna throw this in my nonstick. So we're just gonna saute up some onion, and then we will add in the chorizo and the potatoes. And you may have noticed some of my videos, I'm using a tripod a lot more, and I'm doing multiple shots from different angles, which of course makes things a lot more interesting. And sometimes I'm just doing this point of view where the camera is on my head and you just get to see exactly what I'm doing. Typically, if it's something that's complicated or that's a really great homestead staple and I really want to show every detail, I will set up a tripod and do a lot of shots. If I'm just cooking myself a quick dinner and I'm hungry, I'm not going to take the time to do a lot of different shots and clever angles with the camera and that kind of thing, because it increases the amount of time it takes me to actually cook my dinner. And for something as simple as this, I just wanted to show you what you can do with homestead staples that you have on hand, pantry staples. This is essentially a pantry meal. And it's not only great for camping, but it's great when you get home as well. Woo, that onion's got a little bit of zip to it. It's making my eyes sting. All right, I'm gonna turn that heat down just a little bit. I'm on my hottest burner here. It tends to really rip roar. We'll let those saute while I get these potatoes chopped up and peeled. So these are canned potatoes. You have to have a pressure canner in order to can potatoes, or if you're really a rebel canner, you believe that the Amish do it by just cooking everything for 3 hours. I don't want to eat food that's been cooked for 3 hours. It's going to be complete mush. I would rather actually learn how to pressure can, and so this is pressure canned potatoes. But hey, your kitchen, your rules, do what you feel comfortable with. I love canned potatoes. A lot of people aren't fond of them. They don't like the texture. They're not good for things like mashing. They do have a little bit firmer texture, and I'm not quite sure why that is. It has something to do with the pressure cooking. But for a dish like this, they are perfectly fine. There's also a real trend that you'll see with certain YouTubers where they're dry canning potatoes. So they're putting the potatoes in the can and pressure canning them with no liquid. Please don't do that. Again, your rules, your kitchen. If it's something you're super comfortable with, I can't tell you not to. But water conducts heat very differently than air does. And air, when you think about it, is used as an insulator. When you want to insulate something so that it doesn't get hot or cold quickly, you put an air gap between the thing and the outside. That's how thermoses work. It's actually a vacuum air gap. That's how R value in buildings works. It's an air gap. It's trapped air that holds that insulation. That's actually how animals that are really well suited for the cold are well suited for the cold, is their hair is actually hollow, and so there's an air gap. So just putting potatoes in a can and canning them with no liquid, you are drastically changing how those potatoes are going to preserve, because there's now just air instead of water. That heat is not going to conduct the same way it did before. And maybe there is a way to do it safely, but the people that actually test these things, which is the USDA and companies like the Ball Canning Company, they have not tested it. And so until somebody tests it and puts a thermocouple, which is a little reader that you can put inside a food and find out how things go when actually track the temperature when it's being canned. Until that happens and they give the thumbs up, it is definitely not something that I will be doing in my kitchen. And I think it's a little bit irresponsible to be doing that with a lot of new canners. We have an awful lot of people out in the world in the last 3 years who are new to gardening, new to cooking, new to canning. And to say that that is a safe and tested method and that nobody is ever going to get hurt from it, whew, I am just waiting for somebody to be seriously made ill by potatoes that were canned with air and not canned with water. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit on my soapbox. And again, your kitchen, your rules, do what you like. But you will never see me do something that I consider to be unsafe food practices. I have a degree in biology. I'm really interested in food safety. I tend to ask the question why with a lot of things. I don't just want to know how to do it safely. I want to know why that's what makes it safe. And so I tend to delve a little deeper than a lot of people do on this kind of thing. And yeah, dry canning potatoes, definitely not something you will find in my kitchen. Okay, enough of that soapbox. So we have some nice canned potatoes here. I'm going to try to get a little bit of texture on those before I throw in the meat. And then you saw me put some seasoning salt in here. I have a quick video on how to make this seasoning salt that I use. It's equal parts garlic powder, black pepper, and kosher salt. And then I usually throw in a little bit of home ground paprika. Very simple, but it's a great all-purpose seasoning, and it doesn't matter what kind of ethnic or not ethnic food that you're making. It's tasty no matter what. All right, we're gonna let those get a little brown on them, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, getting some good color on these. That's what we wanted. A little bit of texture. I just broke that up and let her rip for a while to get a little bit of color. You can see we're getting a little browning there, which is what I was looking for, some texture. Mix my potatoes in. You can see why this would be a really good camping meal, because it comes together super fast. And it's one pot, basically. That is going to be delicious. These are an interesting tortilla. I hardly ever see these, and so when I saw them, I bought them immediately because I really like them. They are part corn, part flour. I really love corn tortillas. However, they crack super easy, as you probably know if you have any experience with them at all, unless you dip them in oil and fry them, in which case they'll be pliable. But it's very hard to take a corn tortilla that isn't handmade super fresh and have it still be pliable. So I love these because they're both. They're corn and they have a little bit of flour, so they're a lot more flexible. This is a great trick. Get a little moisture on your tortillas, and I'm just gonna get the other one wet from the moisture of the first one, and then throw them in your toaster oven, and they will basically steam. And so it's a really nice way to reheat tortillas without putting them in the microwave. I hate putting bread products in the microwave. It destroys the texture, and they're really good while they're hot, and that lasts about 30 seconds, and then they're terrible. So yeah, we're gonna just heat those up. And then this is some homemade pickled cabbage slaw, red cabbage slaw that I made in July of last year. And we finally got it out and tried it on this camping trip. And I had seen several YouTubers make this. It's a ball recipe, I believe. And I was really hesitant about whether or not I was gonna like it. I was kind of afraid to open a jar and try it. And it turns out I really like it. It is not dissimilar from pickled beets. And so there is a very distinct sweetness to them that reminds me of pickled beets. And I think if I made this again, you can't change the vinegar amount in a recipe like this, but the sugar is there for flavor. It's not there for preservation. And so if I made it again, I would back off on the sugar just a little bit. They're just a hair too sweet, but they do have a really nice texture. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a lot of firmness to it. Totally surprised me. So really great taco topper, especially when you're camping. As soon as our tortillas are ready, we're gonna be ready to eat. I have this avocado that has been in my fridge for way too long. It looks completely terrible, and I was not expecting it to be usable. And it turns out it's actually still good. So we are gonna go ahead and use it, which is awesome. I think part of the trick to avocado is when they're just about perfectly ripe, put them in the fridge. This has literally been in my fridge for at least a week because I've been gone a week, probably more like 2 weeks, and it's still pretty decent. So yeah, don't leave them sit out on your counter. It makes a big difference. All right. Whew, those are officially warm. See how lovely and puffed up those are? And yet still soft. And I really need to lose a few pounds. So I'm gonna try really hard to just eat one of these. We'll see if I'm actually able to resist having a second one. My primary issue with my weight is not that I eat junk food, it's that I eat too much. Portion control is definitely a thing. All right, you guys, there you have it. Potato and chorizo taco with a little bit of avocado and some home canned red cabbage slaw. Delicious. Give it a try. This is definitely worth the effort that it took me in. The potatoes are over a year old. The slaw is from July. And then the chorizo I just made the other day. So wonderful way to bring together a pantry staple homestead meal. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I have new content coming out every week.